Definitely channeling some Brittany today because, friends, oops, I did it again. Someone take my credit cards because I can't stop. Seriously, having a business where you can write off art supplies is a bad idea. But my obsession is your gain, and today it's all about some really wicked cool handmade watercolors. There is a little unrelated bonus, but you'll have to stick around for that one. Today I'm playing around with ocean paper handmade watercolors, 31 Purplefish handmade watercolors, and these are called hazes. Wait until you see what these do. And then last but certainly not least, Art of Soil handmade watercolors made from, you guessed it, dirt. And the bonus is a bonus and it's a secret, so I'm not telling you yet. You'll have to, you guessed it, stick around. And nope, the bonus isn't the fact that I'm going to show you 4 ways to swatch your new watercolor palettes. Let's get started with ocean paper, friends. Now, I received a ton, like hundreds, maybe thousands, I don't know, of comments on my swatching video. I'll link to it below because some of you love me and some of you were like, you crazy, I'm not doing that. So friends, the question that I got asked the most was, how do you know what colors you've swatched? You don't have any numbers or information on your page. So this, my dear friends, is my answer to that. If you like the kind of laid back, more casual way that I swatch colors, but you want more information on the page as well, this is what you can do. So I'm literally going through my ocean paper palette and I'm writing down the name of each color in kind of a loosey-goosey order as to how they're laid out in the actual case. All right, I have all the names written out and I've created this cool kind of compression of space. So as we go towards the bottom of the page, there's less room for me to swatch. I think it's going to create a cool look. And I've decided to go with hearts. And this is going to allow me eventually to do that little bumpity bump thing I do with my swatching areas where I bump one color up next to the other color. And it really lets me see the interaction of pigments. I'm making sure to really rinse my brush very well in between each color, and I'm just creating various size hearts. Simple as that. I'm creating the outline of the heart and then picking up some water to blend and fill in the interior of the heart. And it creates really cool highs and lows, lights and darks. And I'm just now starting to get the chance to bump these colors up next to one another. And remember, friends, make these hearts all different sizes. You're going to have to in order for the edges of the hearts to start to run into one another. And I should have mentioned, obviously you're painting over top of the color name that corresponds with the color you're painting with. That way you have a reference. Later on, once you've forgotten what you did, you know exactly which color is which, and yeah. Hopefully, this will be a really cool hybrid way to swatch so that you have the information you need, but you still get to see how these colors mingle and interact with one another. Okay, ocean paper watercolors, definitely more opaque than most. No granulating, so they're nice, clean color, and they seem to be known for convenience colors. These are not single pigment colors, friends, for the most part. There's a lot going on here, and these colors, you're not gonna have to worry about mixing. It's all done for you. I found that the cooler tones in this palette seem to be less saturated, less pigmented, where the warmer, the pinks and the reds in general seem to be much more pigmented. I mean, there's definitely a few exceptions to that rule that I'm staking my claim in right now, but that's the general take. This next set has been sitting lonely and sad since last fall. For whatever reason, I picked these up and never got around to using them. And let me tell you what, friends? That was a bad idea because I missed out on a whole bunch of months of joy. These are handmade watercolors from a brand called 31 Purplefish. They're incredible, very, very active on Instagram. Check them out for sure. And these are what they call a haze. Basically, this is what they're calling granulating watercolors. But let me tell you what, these are the most curious, crazy, off the charts granulating colors I've ever used. They do stuff you would never anticipate. So for some of you, it might be a little unnerving, and for others, you're gonna just be all about the crazy right along with me. While a lot of traditional granulating pigments, you really have to push them around, add a lot of water to encourage those pigment particles to separate and be magical. It seems that 31 Purplefish's hazes just kind of like do it on their own. They don't take any coaxing. As you can see, I've chosen a brand new vintage palette for these bad boys, and I'm excited to say I've left some room for adding to this collection because, oh, it's happening. Let's get into the swatching. The same thing goes here. I am going to assign each of these pigments a number and write those on the sheet of watercolor paper I plan to swatch on. I'm definitely going kind of haphazard around the page, and this takes a little more time because as you swatch, you want to make sure you're painting over the correct number. Let me take this moment to remind you why I swatch this way, why my swatching is more haphazard and looks more like a pattern or a painting, if you will. Number one, I like to see how my new pigments interact with each other, not just the individual properties of each color. And so my way of swatching allows colors to bump up next to one another so I can really see how they get along. Number two, I find that traditional swatching, when that's the only way you do it, can be a little stressful and create this kind of imaginary wall between practicing and actually making art. You feel like you have to do all these things, swatch all the colors before you can actually just create a painting. So my swatching is that bridge. It feels more like a quote unquote real painting. And reason number three, I prefer swatching this way. I don't know, it's just more fun and it suits my personality well. So I just want you to know there is another way. All right, Purplefish, let's get this party started. Oh my gosh, I'm using my 3/4 inch flat wash brush and just adding the color over top of the number that I wrote down in kind of a really sloppy square shape. And I'm using different levels of water. So when I first place the color from my brush onto the paper, I've got a lot of pigment going on, but then I dip back into the water, go back to that same color and spread it out a little bit with that water on my brush. And that allows me to really see what's going on with each pigment. I had a chat with the owner of 31 Purplefish, and she definitely let me know that hazes are made with cooler colors in general. So warmer hazes are a little more rare. So you're going to notice a cooler vibe to this palette. Now, I don't know the why behind that. I didn't dare ask her for her super top secret process. That is all hers. As you start to fill in the colors, you can purposely bump them into one another. Now, I recommend bumping gently when you're swatching like this. If you bump too harshly or you have too much pigment on your brush when you bump into that wet area of another color, you might get too much mingling of the pigments, and then it's going to be hard to see the delineation between one color and another. You just want a little area of overlap and wet on wet. I would describe these handmade watercolors with one word: playful. Oh, they are such a joy. And I encourage you, if you do happen to pick these up and you're swatching them, take a photo right after you're done swatching where everything is still wet. Then take another photo once everything has dried completely, and I want you to notice the difference. It will be startling. You'll see what I mean. Next up is the Art of Soil handmade watercolor set, and isn't she a beauty? I actually adore the packaging. It's so well thought out. And look at this wooden palette. Pops off to reveal the pigments. They're all nestled in this perfectly sized palette with the separate mixing tray. It's just so clean and lovely and very Instagrammable, not gonna lie. And for swatching this time, I think I'm gonna do some leaves, but something a little bit more minimal. So same approach, writing the numbers down. I'm assigning numbers 1 through however many of these there are, starting from the top left corner, going across and across and across and so on. This brand is so cool. Also very active on Instagram. Highly recommend you checking them out. Give them a follow and say, hey, Christy sent us. But seriously, I love the story behind these pigments. I adore the resourcefulness, the sustainability that is behind this brand. It's really inspiring. And so let's wet these down and see what happens. Just a simple press, drag, and lift downstroke. And I'm initially noticing the pigmentation of these, definitely a little bit less pigmented than I had anticipated. But as I get into the actual colors, and I mean out of the earthy browns and blacks, things definitely started to pick up in terms of vibrancy and intensity. So I was really happy about that. Not a lot of granulating in these colors, which is also something I wasn't expecting. So definitely a nice surprising touch. You would think that pigments made of dirt would be super granulating and have a lot going on, but these are nice, clean color. And remember, of course, so we can see how these pigments mingle with one another. Make sure you start bumping up your leaves next to one another. And I gotta say, really impressed with how these are flowing, and they're very active on the page. So that's really fun. The word that comes to mind for these handmade watercolors is a surprising one, and it's silky. And they feel silken, they feel soft and graceful, not as powerfully earthy as I thought they would be, but in a delightful way. It's bonus time, friends. Now, this is not a handmade palette, clearly. This is the Derwent Graphitint paint set. And basically, it is water-soluble graphite. And it's so cool. I feel like it should be handmade, but the truth of the matter is, it came in right around the time that my ocean paper palette came, so here we are. As you can see, it came with this little swatch card, and honestly, I'm not too excited by looking at the swatch card, but I know better than to judge a palette by its pre-made weirdo swatch card that didn't allow me to actually swatch them, and you know what I mean. So let's get into it. I'm feeling like stripes for this swatching, and I am going to just paint some stripes down the edge of this paper, and afterwards I will label them because it's a small palette and my memory can at least handle this one. I'm starting with a really juicy brush, lots of water and lots of pigment, and I'm stroking upward to start and purposely letting my brush run out as I go. I want to see what these pigments can do from super juicy and intense to almost a dry brush effect. And I'm also being very careful to have a small area, about an inch tall area, touching the previous color so I can see how the pigments, you guessed it, how they mingle. Okay, friends, these are stupid gorgeous. Like, I can't even handle how much I'm in love with them, and like I'm gonna be emailing this brand and saying, hey, when are the new color options coming out? Cause I'm waiting for it, just take my money. So while I thought they might kind of look like a granulating watercolor, there's more drama and intensity to them. So yeah, they feel and look a little bit like granulating watercolor, but somehow in a more velvety, much more pigmented way. And I was hopeful that there wouldn't be like an actual tangible texture to them, being that they were water-soluble graphite, and I'm pleased to report there is not. They're clean, but edgy, and gritty, but not gritty, like visually gritty, emotionally gritty, right? Gosh, I'm a weirdo, but I am in love with these. I am in love. One word to describe them? Sorry, friends, if there's kids in the room, cover their ears. My one word for these water-soluble graphite pigments is ballsy. Yep, I did just say that. Couldn't think of a better word. It's kind of perfect. And in the drier area, I'm going ahead and just labeling them with my completely lovely but illegible handwriting and the full color name. And actually, I really love the way this looks. It could become like a cool art print. Okay, now that I've wet your palette with this handmade wonderment, did you get that joke there? Wet? Gosh, you need to go ahead and watch this little playlist I put together for you where I review some of my favorite professional brands and Amazon brands. Check it out and happy painting.